Hi, my name is Grace. Welcome to my channel that turns 1 year old today. So for my 1 year old anniversary, YouTube anniversary, whatever you want to call it, I'd like to start by thanking all of you who watch my videos, all those of you who comment. Thank you so much. Like, unlike, subscribe. Love you all. Thank you so much. So, in case you haven't noticed, I'm wearing my favorite hat from my favorite place in the world. This is from Seafood Sam's in Cape Cod. And we were last there 2 years ago around this time. And Seafood Sam's holds a lot of nostalgia for me. It's a place that I went with my dad. I went with people that, my family, people that are close to me, and my current family, like my family, my husband and my children. So yeah, big shout out to Seafood Sam's. Oh my gosh, it would be amazing if they could teleport me some clam strips and scallops. All right, enough about that. Making myself hungry. Okay. This, as you could tell by the timestamp, Scusi, is a short video. I'm going to be doing a series of little videos of stuff that I wanted to share with you today. One of them, this one is Italian American literature. Actually, it's Italian American literature and Italian Canadian literature. And I just wanted to recommend some books that I have on my shelf behind me, because I'm going to be going through my shelves and rearranging things. So as I go through my shelves, if I see something I want to talk about or I'd like to share with you, I'll just turn on the camera and shoot a video. So this is not this book. The first book I'm going to talk about, so I'm not going to do book reviews on these books. I'm just going to tell you that basically the literature that I'm in, the Italian American literature that I mainly own, and because, well, I've read a lot. I haven't kept everything. A lot of the stuff I borrowed from the library. These are the ones I actually own. And there's a certain, for me, it's like mid 20th century is the Italian American fiction or literature or whatever that I like to read. Stories from the mid 20th century, because my parents immigrated from Italy to America, to Canada first, and then to America in the 1950s. As a matter of fact, I think my dad immigrated to Canada in 1951, and I think my mother was just like a couple of years after that, 1953. So yeah, so I'm interested in literature, fiction. Well, it's kind of biofiction, right? A lot of this stuff is based on real stories that, the authors were told by their families. And which is there's magic in these books, because these are real stories reinvented or probably told exactly as they were told to the author. So seriously, people, I know I'm still talking, I haven't shown you anything yet, but so there's a reason. So I'm drawn to stories that center in the early 1950s, because that's when my parents immigrated. I'd like to mention a movie that, of course, I don't have the DVD to show you, because I don't own it. But if you have a chance to see it, it's Big Night, and that is a beautiful movie. See, the most famous, well-known movies about Italian Americans are mafia movies, The Godfather, Goodfellas. Gangster movies are, interestingly, what Italians are known for the most in, when it comes to movies, which is sad, but we're not going to talk about that in this video. But you know what I mean? It's like I can tell you right now that my family, there's no gangsters in my family. What are we? We're my parents, my grandparents, and my parents' generation were mainly either artisans, artists, sculptor, stone cutters. You know what I mean? They were, my family didn't even come from agriculture, so they relied a lot on people that had agricultural skills in order to, uh, buy food or whatever. They knew how to garden and this that, but they weren't agricultural. So there's that. So yeah, and the my generation and just the one previous to mine, like that step down from my parents, because I was born a little like my parents had me a little late for traditional Italians. Um, my cousins, I'm an only child. My cousins are medical, like health, and law enforcement. So here we are, for the most part. Teachers, you know, we're not gangsters. But anyway, I digress. So I want, for me, it's. I love The Godfather. Don't get me wrong. I think that's one of my top favorite movies. I watch it once a year, as it's it's a tradition to watch it once a year, and I enjoy it. Goodfellas. I can't even tell you how many times I've seen Goodfellas on TV. Every time it comes on, doesn't matter where it is in the story. Stop. We're watching it. It's in the background or whatever. So. But these books are different. The first one I've mentioned before, and it's The Black Madonna by Louisa Ermelino. This book, and someone left me a comment, thank you, on the video where I featured this book. You will learn more about the practice of working with the Black Madonna from this book of fiction than anything else. So if you could get your hot little hands on it, I highly recommend it. The next one is, I believe this was from my Sorella Donna sent this to me. Yeah, I'm almost certain that my Sorella Donna sent this to me, and it is Vita, a novel, and it's by Melania G. Mazzucco. And it's a beautiful and moving saga, a lyrical epic, profoundly existential, full of illusion, hope, and heartache. And this one opens up with, in April 1903, the steamship Republic spills more than 2,000 immigrants onto Ellis Island. So it's that kind of, as you could see from the cover art, that this is like before World War II immigration. And it's a beautiful book, and I recommend it. The next book, see, and what here's what gave me the idea. Serafina, if you're watching, you gave me the idea to do this video today because I have the first Coffee with Nonna, and I think your book, the one you have, is More Coffee with Nonna. So the best stories of my Catholic grandmother by Vincent Yatzzi, or I guess Americans we would probably say Ayatzi, but it's Yatzzi, you know. And this one is basically it's during World War II. Young Vincent Yatzzi was at home with his grandmother in his Philadelphia neighborhood because of the war effort. Most of the mother's big sisters and aunts were working in the factories while most of the father's big brothers and uncles were off at war. This is a cute book. I grew up in the early and mid 70s listening, and then later too, but that's when it started, listening to stories, being told stories every day about the Italian-Canadian experience or World War II experience, because my parents were young during World War II, but they were in Italy. And aunts and uncles and whatever were a little bit older, but my relatives all immigrated to Canada and United States in the 1950s. There was another wave. So the first wave, I guess, would be my paternal grandfather's brothers all came over around, it might have been before the First World War. So they came over, or just after the First World War. And then there was another wave, and that was the one that my parents were the, I think, that next wave of immigration, just after World War II, which would have been early 1950s. And then there was a third wave, and I'm just talking about like the people that I know. I'm sure the Italians came over even before that, but let's just talk about the people in my family tree that I know of. And there was a third wave of immigration, and most of my friends growing up, their parents were of this third wave, and they immigrated to Canada in the 1960s. And their parents came over as teenagers with their parents. So like that's pretty like that's completely different. Whereas my parents and that generation, they were like, my dad was 19 years old. You know what I mean? It's like from a small town in Abruzzo, he gets on a boat and he lands in Halifax, Nova Scotia, Canada. You know what I mean? Like it's like, whoa. We don't know. We who grew up here will never know what that's like to leave where you're from and to boldly go somewhere where you don't even speak the language. You're barely literate in your own mother tongue. A lot of people were from the countryside and whatever, and they just knew the dialect of the village that they came from. So put that into perspective, people. Put that into perspective. So yeah, so coffee with cafe con nonna, coffee with nonna. There we go. The next one is also takes place during the 1950s. So a lot of Italian American literature takes place in New York, New Jersey. But this is Chicago area. So this is Paper Fish by Tina DeRosa, and this one is takes place in the 1950s in the Chicago area. The next one, I'm pretty sure that Vita. Where's Vita? Vita. I'm pretty sure this was from my sorella Donna, and I'm pretty sure the next one, Coraggio, was sent to me by her, and it's writing by women of Italian descent. So this is an anthology. If you could get your hands on this one, I highly guarantee. Again, it's a nice mix of feminism, like women's studies and cultural studies. That's the word I was looking for. Cultural studies. Oh my God. I hold books that have to do with Italian Americans, and suddenly I forget to speak English. Okay. So, yeah. So this is, she writes, what I could not be in my Sicilian community was lesbian and feminist. Like, and so that's a quote. And like, these are all short stories and poems from different authors, as you can see here. And then there's another quote. "Sì, sempre la famiglia prima," she repeated, and with that wrung out the mop and tossed the dirty water into the backyard as if purging herself of the unpleasantness of her story. "How do you handle your stress?" the doctor asks. "I yell." So, I don't know, this is a great book. If you could get your hands on it, highly recommend. Again, not a review, just showing you what's on my bookshelf that I recommend. This, I'm almost certain that this was sent. This may have been sent to me by my sorella Donna, or I picked this one up. This is called Crazy in the Kitchen: Food, Feuds, and Forgiveness in an Italian American Family by Luis De Salvo. Oh my God, I love this book. And I'm just gonna read. I'm just gonna quickly read this because it really captures. So yeah, my grandmother is in the kitchen, cutting the Italian bread that she has made. The bread that my grandmother has made is a big bread, a substantial bread, a bread that you can use for dunking or for open-faced sandwiches or for scraping the last bit of sauce from a bowl of pasta, or for toasting and eating with jam, or for breaking into soups and stews, or for eating with a little olive oil and a shake of coarse salt, or with the juices and seeds of a very ripe tomato and some very green olive oil. Pane pomarolo. My grandmother's bread is a good bread, not a fine bread. It's a thick crusted, coarse crumbed Italian bread, a peasant bread. A bread that my mother disdains because it is everything that my grandmother is and everything that my mother in 1950s suburban New Jersey is trying very hard not to be. So there's an interesting part of Italian American culture that 1950s, that would be my mother's generation, or maybe like, you know, someone even like 5-10 years younger than her. But that's when my parents were Americans. Okay, they were Italian immigrants, but they came to America and they were 100% Americans. And I love reading books about that time because America is a melting pot, or was a melting pot. Things have, you know, America's a different place now than it was when my parents immigrated. What is it now? 70 years ago? Jesus. That's a freaking long time. That's a freaking long time ago. Anyway, and to me, it's so recent because I grew up with these stories, right? Anyway, so there was a drive to become Americans, to shed all that ethnic identity, and just, you know, assimilate. And so it's interesting to get inside the heads of the people of my parents' generation, because they were torn. I saw this with my dad. He was torn between wanting to hang on to tradition and hang on to nostalgia and tradition, which is why cooking, food is so important to Italians. It's already important to the culture as it is, but to Italian immigrants, it was one way of maintaining their connection to where they came from. And at the same time, the drive to be American, to assimilate. And that's all I'm going to say, because there's so much to say on that subject, because, you know. But I just wanted to share with you these books, The Black Madonna, Vita by Mazzucco, Crazy in the Kitchen that I just mentioned by Luis de Salvo, Coraggio, this anthology, Paper Fish, Coffee with Nonna, and now I'm going to share with you a trilogy that's Italian-Canadian by an Italian-Canadian author. So yeah, some of you must be thinking, Grace, how come, did you read that book? Yeah, I'm weird. I could read a book many times and it still looks like this. I know, strange. All right, this one looks a little more worn, I guess, because it's, you know, this one looks really well loved. So this is a trilogy, and it's by Nino Ricci, and this one, the first one, is from 1990, and this is Lives of the Saints. This was made into a movie with Sophia Loren, and I can't remember who else. But if you're looking for a novel, it's fiction. It's like Ermolino's Black Madonna. You see a lot of Italian folk magic and witchcraft in these books, and it's just woven into the story, because just like it's just woven into our culture. So there's Lives of the Saints, and I think the next one in the trilogy is this one, In a Glass House. So it follows the same family and where she has gone. So Nino Ricci for the Italian Canadian perspective, which there is a difference. Having grown up on both sides, being both Italian American and growing up in Canada, there is, you know, just like I imagine Italo Australians are different from Italo Canadians and Italo Americans, but there's common threads. There's common threads, and those common threads lead back to Italy, lead back to the immigrant experience. So, you know what I mean? Like, we have more in common with each other than we are different, but our stories have a slightly different flavor, that accented by the geographical location that our people immigrated from and to. So that's it for me with my sharing my bookshelf. I hope to see you in the next video. Thank you and have a beautiful day.